I had an opportunity to go to Canada. I had a chance to go to Canada after my junior year of high school and work in a fishing lodge. And then I had a really good opportunity. I went back at the end of my senior year, and I spent about 4 or 5 months there. I was able to stay until October, which is their Thanksgiving. And then I came home, and then I took a job in a factory. They wanted me to go to college. I had no desire to go to college. Worked in a factory for a while, and then finally, met a young lady that was going to college and thought maybe I should go to college.
Mm.
But the thing that happened during that time was it was interesting because when I got away, in a sense, you know, I felt bad for my sisters and my brothers because I knew what they were
Mm.
going through. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? He kind of diverted that energy in that direction. And then when I was a sophomore in college, I remember getting a phone call one night from my mother, and she said, "Have you seen Jimmy?" There was me, two girls, and Jimmy, and we were
Mhm.
all about 2 years apart. It was a close group at the top. And
Mhm.
then my brother Dan was 6 years younger than Jimmy, came along 6 years later. So I get a phone call that Jimmy has been gone for a few days, and it turned out that Jimmy had followed more in my dad's pattern, in a
Mhm.
sense.
Mhm.
He was drinking at a young age. He was only 14. Kind of reminds me of your kids, that you had at the ranch. And I mean,
Mhm.
these kids just were not going in the right direction. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And I wasn't home, so there was that guilt, like, man, what if I wouldn't have gone to Canada? What if I would have stayed home? What if I would
Yeah.
not have left? You know what I'm saying? And so, but anyway, as it turned out, I came home from college. I was in finals week when she called me. I came home from college, and about 2 weeks later, they found my brother in the river. He had drowned in the river and floated down to the next town. And yeah, so it was like, I don't know. You know what
Wow.
I'm saying? What if, what if, what if,
So you had that guilt, and you
Yeah.
had taken on the role of caretaker or
Almost the
overlooker or
protector at a
protector
certain
of,
point,
yeah,
yeah, but how do you
children.
protect against something like
Yeah,
that?
children of alcoholics tend to take on different roles,
Mhm.
and they often take on the role of protector, and that's what you had taken by.
Yeah.
Man, the trauma of having to deal with, did that bother you for a long time, or
I'm
still
not sure
bother
it
you maybe?
doesn't still bother me, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? It was weird, I was telling you just before we started this, a few weeks back, we were in Atlanta at a friend's, and we were doing a chiropractic seminar, and this came up, like, where did this
Mhm.
come why? I don't know why this came up, but he said, "This is about speak up and lead, learn to speak your voice and say
Mhm.
what's on your mind," and we went to lunch, and I was like, "I gotta talk about this," and I even
Yeah.
looked at Leslie, and I said, "I gotta tell my story," which is weird to me
You
that I'm
do
gonna.
you do have an incredible story, but the most incredible part of the story is that you turned it around.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell us
Well, and
about
that's the
that.
positive part. Okay, so uh, let's just think about Jim McClellan. Jim McClellan was one of 13, eighth grade
Your
education.
stepfather.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, or
Or
adopted father,
adoptive
however we
father.
want to
Yeah.
look at it. And maybe in a sense, he was doing the very best that he could do with what he had. You know what I'm saying? But when I looked at that, and when I decided that I was going to have a family, especially when I decided to have a family, I made that decision that I was going to break that curse. That
Mhm.
generational curse was going to be broken, and there would never be addiction, violence, any of that in my home. And so, I think from the positives, maybe, yeah, the reverse psychology worked on me. When he
Mhm.
did those things to me, instead of breaking down, it made me stronger. Okay. But then when he broke Jimmy down,
Mm.
Jimmy couldn't do it. I mean, I believe that Jimmy committed suicide, and the way the funeral happened and the way
Mhm.
the whole town reacted to losing Jimmy, it was a very, very strange event. So,
Yeah.
we truly believe that he had just given up and said, "I can't do this
It
anymore."
was that rough.
It was very rough.
Home
Yeah.
was that rough. Do you
Yeah.
recall any particular point in time? Was there a specific time that you remember thinking, "I've got to do better. I'm gonna change. I'm gonna flip this script," or did it just kind of evolve as time went?
Mm, I think probably at that time when it got to the point, I was about 15 years old, and I actually ran away from home. I just had had enough. And my neighbor, it was kind of funny, Rick Miller, failed the ninth grade.
Mm.
He was going to have to stay because everybody else was going to the high school. And Rick says, "I'm done. I'm never going back to school." And so I said, "Well, I'm having a really rough time. You want to run away?" And he said, "Yeah." So We did. We started hitchhiking, a couple of kids with a bag, and started hitchhiking back in the days when you could hitchhike
Yeah,
pretty much
yeah.
anywhere, And we were gone for about 5 days, and we had, I don't know, $40 each or something like that. And we ran out of money. We were eating pizzas every night. It was kind of a interesting, that's an interesting story in itself. But we ended up going to a town called Meadville, and there was an amusement park there called Conneaut Lake Park. And we were trying to get to the park to get a summer job. We never made it there. And looking back, and with pedophiles and all the crazy stuff
Yeah.
that may have happened to us, probably was a good thing that we didn't get there. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, we decided after a week or so that ran out of money. We just turned ourselves into the police, and
Well,
my parents came to get us, and his
just
parents came to get him, and yeah.
so you just have to endure it. So,
Yeah, but I'll tell you what happened. They picked us up. We got locked in a cell, so we were in a cell for the night. And Rick's parents got there first, and I'll never forget. I heard a policeman coming up the stairs, and he opened up that door. Turns the key and opens up this big door, and he goes, "Rick Miller." And Rick comes to the door, and I get up and I walk to the door, and he puts his hand in my chest and shoves me back and closes the door and locks it. Now, for the first time, I'm thinking this running away thing isn't so cool, because
yeah.
I just got locked in a cell by myself.
So Rick had left.
Rick's gone. I don't know if my parents are coming. You know what I'm saying? I don't know anything at this point. It's in the middle of the night now.
And you're 15.
I'm 15 years old. I'm locked in a jail cell by myself. Yeah. And so anyway, a few hours later, they did show up. Turned out there was a fire that diverted them or whatever. And so we get there, we get in the car, hug my mother, everybody's crying, get in the car. We drive down the road just a few miles, and he stops the car, and he said, "So talk to me. What's going on?" And I said, "Well, he goes, "Well, I didn't think you had guts enough to do this, And he said, "Well, actually he said, I didn't think you had balls enough to do this." Okay. And I say, "Well, whatever you're going to say, And so he reaches in his shirt pocket and he pulls out, or he goes, "Did you run out of money?" And I said, "Yeah, we pretty much ran out of money." And so he reaches in his shirt pocket and he throws a $20 bill in my lap. And he said, "You want to get out and keep going?"
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I said, "Nah, I'm good."
Wow. See, Mike, the people that you work on every day and that you associate with and that you've coached and that you've known for 20 something years, we would have never imagined that about you.
Wow.